Hello, Mr. Dieter Bruhn. Are you here?
Em hai Duy
Yes,
ơi,
so,
cháu quên off cho ông speaker đi. Ông Dieter, ông ấy vào đấy.
Yes, I get him.
okay, so please share your slides, your screen.
Oh, there we go. Okay, I was muted. All right, are we ready to get going?
Yes, so firstly, good afternoon, our presenters and participants. We are welcome to the virtual Vietnamese International Convention 2021. On behalf of the organizing committee, we would like to thank you so much for your participation and contribution to our annual convention success. We are Nguyễn Văn Thắng and Nguyễn Thị Tuyết Hồng as the presentations moderators. We are delighted to see all of you in light of virtual presence today, especially in this workshop. We do hope that all of you will be able to have some valuable knowledge and experience as takeaways following the talk. Before the presentation, there are a few considerations. In case you have any questions or concerns about the presentation, please feel free to leave them in the chat box so that we can gather the questions for easy response. In the 5 to 10 minute Q&A sessions. We gladly welcome Mr. Dieter Bruhn in this 60-minute workshop, which is entitled The Power of Creative Writing. About our presenter, Mr. Dieter Bruhn is a dynamic and passionate trainer, educator, leader, entrepreneur, and cross-cultural expert with more than 25 years of global training experience. He is president and founder of One World Training, a global training organization located in the US. And he is currently doing a long-term project as an English language specialist through the US Embassy in Hanoi. Welcome, please welcome Mr. Dieter Bruhn.
So thank you so much, and thank you everybody for attending today. I know it's the end of the day and you've probably been in a lot of sessions, so I will try my best to wake you up. And I hope you enjoy the session today. Yeah, so today's session is on the power of creative writing. This is something that I am very, very passionate about, and I'm excited to share some great ideas with all of you today. Starting out, Patrick Randolph, he and I have done presentations together at TESOL and at Colorado TESOL on creative writing. He's also written a book. He and I are both passionate about it. This is how he defines creative writing. I love this quote. He says, creative writing is a way of embracing, observing, experiencing, thinking, and writing about the past, present, and future through tapping into one's soul, spirit, mind, body, brain, consciousness, and mindfulness. So what I love about this definition is it really encompasses more than just thinking. It really encompasses a lot about mindfulness and the spirit and all the things that we use to get creativity going. So just really quickly, I want to get into some activities, but I'm just going to take a minute just to kind of just introduce a couple ideas, like why creative writing? Why should we use creative writing? Number one, it's fun. I love it, and my students love it, and everybody I've talked to loves it. So it's a great way. It encourages creativity. It really helps with self-expression, because a lot of times when students are writing, they're writing about a topic. You know, they might be writing about something that they're learning in class. It's more structured. Creative writing allows self-expression, which is really beautiful. It's an opportunity for them to explore with the language and with their own creativity. And what I really love about it is a lot of times, especially as we get to higher levels, we teach students how to write a paragraph, and then we teach them how to write an essay. And it tends to be structured, you know, topic sentence, supporting sentences, concluding sentence, things like that. So it's very structured. Creative writing is much less structured. It gives them a lot more freedom to express themselves in writing without feeling constrained by rules and structure. It also, actually, creative writing has been shown to improve thinking skills. When we actually write creatively, it actually helps our thinking. It helps create pathways in the brain. If any of you are into brain research, it boosts that as well. And it also helps academic writing and other types of writing. There's been a strong correlation that's been placed between creative writing and academic writing, even though they seem very different. Students who are engaged in creative writing actually improve their overall writing skills and academic writing skills faster than students who aren't in that type of situation. So creative writing may seem different, but it actually helps support other types of writing, which is great. Some ideas from students. These are things that students have said that how it helps them. We've heard things like it helps them play with the language. They feel the language on a deeper level. That's just when we talk about creativity and tapping into the emotion and the body and the spirit. It helps them appreciate their control and confidence in writing. Creative writing actually helps improve confidence. They have fun creating and writing, as opposed to sometimes on a more academic level or structured level. And it also creates a sense of self-worth by focusing more on self and what we feel and what we want to write about. It definitely improves the feeling of self-worth. So creative writing is very powerful. Okay, so that's a short introduction, but I know all of you are here to really get into what can I do in the classroom. We're gonna go through, I have 4 activities to go through today. I would like to also take a little bit of time for each activity for you to actually practice. I find as teachers, it's much easier to teach something and share something with your students if you've actually experienced it. So one of the things we'll do today is we won't take a lot of time because we only have an hour, but I would like to take a little time for each activity if we can, and have you at least write something so that you can experience what it's like to go through this process, okay? So the first one, this is a very simple one. I find that I've trained teachers all over the world, many parts of the world. I've done programs all around the world. And one of the big things I've found that teachers say when I talk about poetry in particular, they're afraid to teach poetry. They're intimidated by poetry. They're afraid their students will get confused or feel stressed if they have to write a poem. So I like to start with this activity because this activity is based on something that's very personal. It's not a rhyming poem, so they don't have to rhyme. So sometimes people feel stressed. I think, oh, I need to rhyme words. This has nothing to do with rhyming. It can be used at almost every level, from pretty low levels all the way up to advanced students. It's very simple. It's a 4-line poem. And these are sort of the instructions, but I'm going to actually walk you through it. Instead of going through the instructions here, we're actually going to do it. But I'm going to start out by sharing a simple poem. This is for about an intermediate level class, maybe. For advanced, I would probably make it more in depth. And for beginners or low levels, I could keep it really simple, like I see mountains, I hear birds. So we can adapt this to different levels. So I'm going to read this to you. I see tall mountains rising toward the sky. I hear birds singing in the trees. I smell wildflowers all around me. I feel at peace with the world. Okay, so 4 lines, simple. As I mentioned, this is not advanced, it's more in the middle. So what I'd like to do is walk you through what I actually do with students. So I'd like you to take about 20 seconds. I'm going to shorten it because of time. I want you to think of a place. This is a place that's special to me. I live in Colorado in the United States. I'm right at I live at the base of the mountains. It's very easy. I'm in the mountains really fast. So for me, being in the mountains is a very special place and spiritual place for me. So what I'd like you to do is think of a special place. It could be a room. It could be your house. It could be your grandmother's house. It could be a place you've gone on vacation, maybe at the beach or in the mountains or in a city that's very old and historical. It could be any place, but I want you to just take a minute and just quickly think of a place that is very special to you, okay? I'm gonna give you about 20 or 30 seconds to think of it. So we're doing this in fast mode. Okay, does everybody have a place in mind? Give me I can't see everybody, but give me a thumbs up if you have a place in your mind that you're thinking of. I see at least one thumb up. So just any place that's special to you. Like I said, it could be sitting under a tree. It could be a park. It could be, you know, your room. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. I'm hoping all of you have a place in mind. So what I'd like you to do, if you notice here, I have some prompts, but I'd like you to close your eyes. Close your eyes. Close your eyes. Some of you still have your eyes open. Close your eyes. So close your eyes. And imagine you are in this place right now. You're in this place. So really go there in your mind. Imagine you are there. And I want you to look around in your mind and think about what you see in this place. What do you see? Now think about the sounds. What sounds do you hear when you're in this place? Now think about the smells. Are there any smells that you can associate with this place? What does it smell like there? And finally, how does this place make you feel? Now I'd like you to open your eyes. And I would like you to write a 4-line poem. I see, I hear, I smell, I feel, based on your place. So just take a minute or a couple minutes and just quickly write down some lines. I see, I hear, I smell, I feel. Okay, I'm going to give you about 30 more seconds. And those of you who may have just joined us, everybody's writing a poem with I see, I hear, I smell, I feel. So that's why it's quiet right now. Okay, I'm going to put you into some, somebody actually wrote one in the chat, but I'm going to put you into some breakout rooms. How many participants do we have? Oh, I said we have 50. Okay, I'm going to put you into a breakout room. If you're done, I'd just like some of you to share your poems with some other participants. Okay, so I'm going to put you into, and this is also a great strategy. Some of you are challenged. I know it's challenging having to do things online now. So what I'm going to do is, this is one way, one great strategy for getting students to participate as well, is to put them into breakout rooms if you're using, for example, Zoom. So I'm going to put you about 4 or 5 people in a group. I'd like you to just take, like I said, just a couple minutes, share your poems. I don't know if we'll have time for everybody, but I'd like to at least kind of get the feel of it. So I am going to, I'll set them up here. I'm going to make, let's see, maybe 12 breakout rooms. Okay, so please talk to the people in your group. Just a couple minutes, like I said, just to share. Here we go. Those of you who just joined, we have everybody in breakout rooms. I'm going to try to put you into a breakout room if you just joined the session. And everyone's reading some poetry that they just wrote. So I'm just going to randomly put you into a room. So Lien Pham, I'm about to put you into a room as well. Okay, I think hopefully everybody's back now. Oh, here they come. Everybody's joining here. Okay. Here we go. Okay, I think everybody's
Thank you,
back.
Dieter. We have interesting talk to the participants.
Great. Before we go to the next activity, does anybody have any questions or comments about this? I want to make sure you have an opportunity to ask questions, but I also want to make sure we have time to get through all the activities. But since this was the first one, I wanted to see if you have questions, comments, ideas. As I mentioned, with low-level students, you can even have them just write a word. You can give them a piece of paper that says, I see, I hear, I smell, I feel, and they can write one word. Like a low-level students can say, I see a house, I see the mountains, I see the beach, I hear the waves. You know, they could have very, very basic. And as I mentioned, for higher level students, the example that I give might be more poetic, more in depth. Like, I see the tall mountains that rise toward the clouds above me. You know, I could make it longer if I want to. So this is actually very appropriate for almost every level that you teach. And regardless of your class size, whether you have 10 students or 50 or 60 or 70 students, you can do this. And you saw I put you into small groups and had you share. With a small class, everybody could share, but with a large class, you can have students share in groups. So any quick questions or comments? I noticed some of you have added your ideas to the chat, which is great. Here's one that somebody wrote. I see the leaves turn color. Oh wait, things are moving fast. Someone wrote this. I hear the humming of wind. I smell the bittersweet winter. I feel I am growing old for real. That's a really powerful poem. I love that. This idea about the leaves change color and I change too as I'm getting older. So beautiful. Someone said this is fun and it allows learners to use their imagination. Yes, it definitely does. It definitely helps them use their imagination. Anybody else? Any comments? I would love to read the other ones here, but I want to make sure we have time. So I definitely recommend this, especially for the first time you ever introduce poetry to your students. This is a great way to introduce it because, like I said, it's simple. It's someplace that's very personal and very special, and it's not so complicated to write. And students are like, oh, I can write a poem. So 4 lines, and you can also add more lines for advanced students. You could add in like, I touch, I think, I imagine. You know, you could add a few extra lines for more advanced students if you want, but I find even with advanced students, 4 lines works really, really well. Okay, great, thank you everybody. I wish I could read all of your poems. Let's see, someone said, like the way you're sharing to involve the learners. Yes, I always try, for me, it's always important to involve the learners as much as possible in the process. So as a teacher, I am a facilitator. I give them what they need, and then I let them produce and let them interact and engage. So let me go to the next activity, just so, because I know we don't have a lot of time. I'm personally, I'm a poet. I love poetry. So some of the things I'm sharing with you today are poems. Some of them are things that can be done as poetry or as just writing. So, but this particular one is poetry. So the next one we're going to look at, personification, poems and stories. I really love this activity. I have the students imagine that there's something or someone else. They could be a tree or a book, a river, an eagle, a dolphin, an elevator, a homeless person. They could be anybody or anything. So basically putting yourself into someone else's shoes or something. So imagine writing a story or a poem as if you are a tree writing the story instead of a person talking about a tree. So this is really, really nice. If you do write a poem, I always tell students it doesn't have to rhyme, because again, some students, and poetry sometimes rhymes and sometimes doesn't. So I always want to make sure that students understand they don't need to rhyme. So I'm going to show you a poem that I wrote as a model, and just to sort of see. So I wrote a poem called The Park Bench. And so again, this is written by the park bench. So I'm writing it, I'm making myself imagine I'm a park bench. And the park benches, people come and go all day, right? People come, they sit, things happen, they leave. So a park bench gets to experience many, many, many kinds of people. So for me, this was kind of an interesting thing to use for a poem. So I will read this to you. And mine rhymes, but I said it doesn't have to. So this is the park bench talking. There are many things I cannot see, but the world in pieces comes to me. The lovers whose lips each other touch, the tourists from Holland speaking Dutch, the old gray man who feeds the birds, and with computers, all the nerds, the homeless man who sleeps at night, but leaves me for the morning light. Mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers, all of them and many others. Each one I hold within my arms and protect them from the world's harms. Okay. So what I'd like to do is, I think this is another interesting one. Again, we're just going to take a few minutes, so you may not be able to finish, but I'd like you to imagine something that you'd like to write about. I've done this before. I had somebody who wrote as if they were Facebook, which was really interesting. They from Facebook, as if Facebook wrote the story. They actually wrote a story. So I would like you to take a few minutes and write a poem or a story from the perspective of anything or anyone that you would like to, okay? And if a couple of you just joined us, if you'd like to read this poem, you can, and I'd like you to take a minute and write a poem or a story from the perspective of something else. So this poem is written as if the park bench wrote the poem, okay? And somebody just joined us. I don't know if you got kicked out and came back in, but if you're new here, everybody's writing a poem or a story right now from the perspective of something else. So this example on the screen is a park bench. So this is as if the poem had been written by a park bench and not by me. Okay, I'm going to give you about 1 more minute, and then I'm going to put you into groups to share. And again, it's okay if you haven't finished, because I'm limited with time in the presentation, but I'd like you to share even if you haven't finished. But I'll give you about 1 more minute to work on this. Okay, I am going to, I know a lot of you probably aren't done yet, but I'm going to put you into some groups again. I'm going to put you into different groups this time, so you'll have different people to interact with. And we'll just take a couple minutes again and have you share. Hopefully there will be time for everybody, but we'll at least get through a few of these. So let me put you into some breakout rooms again. And I think some of you joined a little bit late, so I'll still put you into a room and you can hear what the other folks came up with. Everyone should be back here in a second. Chan, I don't know if you were with us before. Everyone was just in breakout rooms and they're coming back. So we're gonna do the next activity in just a minute here. Okay, here we go. Okay, I think everybody's back. So really quickly, any comments or questions, please put them in the chat if you have a question or a comment about this.
So I think some guys have that noted down some poems in the chat box.
Oh yeah, we can. Yeah, there are some in the chat. Some people shared in the chat box. I like this one. Someone actually made it into Christine made it into a blank. I cannot write, but all the time I get letters on me, either stories or poetries. I can neither see nor read. I am your blank and please keep me. So that's great. So that makes the students think, right? It's also fun, right? So that would be a fun way to do it too, where maybe you think of something and you write about it and the students have to guess what it is. That's kind of fun. This one is the answer is a book, but it's really fun. Oh, here it is. I am your book. So see the book there, but you can make it into a guessing game. Converges great minds, and it says, open our eyes. I like the way speakers deliver their talks. Great. Okay. Hope everyone keeps shining and have a memorable time with your hospital. Thank you. Okay, awesome. So let's go to the next activity. We have about 20 minutes, a little more than 20 minutes left. And I want to make sure we have time for a few questions at the end. One person had a comment about the first activity, about how it's hard for low-level students to do things like this. I mentioned before, but maybe wasn't clear, is for very low-level students, we can give them some vocabulary or maybe brainstorm some vocabulary or use vocabulary that they have learned. And then we can give them, I see blank, I hear blank, I smell blank, I feel blank. So they just have to write one word. So it's at a very basic level, that would be the way to do it. So we can adapt this to just about any level out there, okay? Did someone else have a question or comment? More about the kinds of creative and the purpose of it. Yeah, why don't we save that for the end? The person who's this Sran Lut, I'm not sure, my pronunciation is probably bad, but if you want to keep that question for the end, we'll talk more about creative, well, with the creative and the purpose. I guess I could do that quickly. We did it at the beginning, but being creative, using creative writing is important. It opens up the mind, it uses a lot of the senses, it's more personal. It's less structured than academic writing, but it actually, students who do creative writing do better in academic writing than those who don't. So there are a lot of reasons and even research that supports creative writing as a way to enhance all types of writing, allowing students to use their senses, use their creativity, and really improve writing. Creative writing, I've taught academic writing before, and I always do something with creative writing because it really helps my students improve. And when you think about it, we just did an activity where we wrote about something from somebody else's or something else's perspective. And even in academic writing, we read different articles and we use that as research to get different perspectives. So the idea about different perspectives is actually part of writing as well. So anyway, so let's go to the next one, because like I said, we don't have a lot of time. I'd like to make sure that we have time to at least talk about each one of the activities. The next one, I keep telling you it's one of my favorites, but they're all my favorites. The next one is called ABC Stories. This is an activity, and we can adapt this. I'll explain how we can adapt it to different levels in a minute. Essentially, the students write a story. Every sentence begins with the next letter of the alphabet. This really encourages and almost forces students to become more creative with their structures, with their language. They can't start every sentence with the word the. They have to be creative. So I'll give you an example of, I took a fairy tale and I rewrote it as an ABC story. So I'll show you. And it doesn't have to go all the way from A to Z. We just go as far as we can. So here's one that I wrote as an example. And like I said, this is kind of a familiar story, but it's written as an ABC story. So as you notice, the first sentence begins with A, the second with B, C, D, E. Almost 300 years ago, there lived a princess in a castle far away. But unbeknownst to her, her stepmother was an evil witch who was extremely jealous of the princess's beauty. Carefree and fun-loving, the princess never suspected that her stepmother would lock her in the highest tower of the castle. Distressed and lonely, the poor princess lived there alone for many years. Every night she wished upon the stars that a young prince would come and rescue her from the tower. Fortune, she began to think, might never come her way as year after year passed with no sign of the prince. Great fortune will never bless me, thought the princess. Having given up all hope, almost given up all hope, the poor princess became very sad. Is this the end of me, she thought? Just as she was about to give up all hope one dark and lonely night, she suddenly heard the sound of a galloping horse off in the distance. Knowing not whom it might be, the princess waited until a stunning white horse came into view, upon which sat a handsome young prince. Lovely princess, said the prince, I have never seen such beauty as yours, but why are you up so high in the tower? My stepmother is an evil witch, said the princess, and she has kept me prisoner here for many years. Not to worry, said the prince, for I will save you from her evil ways. Off his horse, the prince jumped, and up the side of the great tower he climbed. Princess, he said, climb upon my back and I will carry you to freedom. Quickly, the princess did as the prince said, and down the side of the tower they went. Reaching the bottom, they jumped upon the white stallion and rode off into the sunset. Okay, so this is, as I meant, this is just one example. This is kind of taking a fairy tale. If you notice, my language is very creative, right? Sometimes I start with an adjective like distressed and lonely, right? So it makes me, I could say, once upon a time there was a princess. The princess's stepmother was an evil witch. She was extremely jealous of the prince. You know, I could start, but that's always the same structure over and over again. This way, especially for intermediate to advanced students, this really gets them using language. And this really improves their writing a lot because they have to become creative. What I wanted to mention is for students at lower levels, I sometimes do things like pick something like animals. And you could say like, start with A, right? What's an animal that begins with the letter A? Like apes. Apes are close to humans. B, buffalo. Buffalo are popular in Vietnam. C, cats. Cats are very smart. D, dogs. Dogs are good friends. So we could go A, B, C, D with something like animals or fruits and vegetables or foods. Or you could do geography. Asia is a big continent. B, Bangkok is in Thailand. C, California is in the United States. D, you know, we could do something like that as well. So the ABC idea, and for low-level students, you know, try to think of a word you know that begins with the letter A. And how about the letter B? But the letter C, can. The letter D, don't. So ABC as an idea can be used effectively at all levels. This particular one is a more high intermediate advanced type thing that I'm doing here, but I can use the ABC, even names, right? A, Alan is my friend, or you could do Alan is awesome. Bing is beautiful. C, Carl is clever, right? You could do things like that. So ABC stories, again, we can do lots of creative things with it. I would like you to try this just for a few minutes, even if we just get a few sentences. I'd like you to try doing this because it's very interesting. And you can write a true story, you can write a fairy tale, you can write a mystery, or if you want to, do one of the simpler ones like geography, like Asia, or names, or fruits and vegetables. But I'd like you to try this and just sort of experience what it feels like to do this, because I think you'll notice when I do ABC stories, my language always becomes very creative. I start to use, like here, distressed and lonely. I don't normally write like that, but now I'm using different structures. I'm moving things around. And it really helps improve when you get into other types of writing. Now you're using different styles of writing. So I'm going to give you about 2 minutes. I know it's not a lot of time, but I'd like you to start writing an ABC story and get as far as you can. You notice in this story, we got to the letter R. I didn't go all the way to Z. I stopped at R. So we don't have to go to the end. So let's take a few minutes and go ahead and write down something here quickly. Okay. Someone just joined us. If you just joined us, everybody is writing a story called an ABC story, where every sentence begins with the next letter of the alphabet. So if you just joined us, everybody's writing. So first sentence begins with the letter A, second with the letter B, and third with the letter C. So this is an example that we went through. Okay, I'm gonna stop you here, primarily because we only have about 10 minutes left, and I wanna make sure we have time for some questions at the end, and I do have one more activity to go through. Oh, here's somebody started to write something. This is great. A terribly handsome guy asked me to get married with him last night. The first time he saw me, Ben, that handsome man's name, is a millionaire, and da 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 da. Great start. Christine said she only got from A to D. That's okay. With students, I would obviously give them much more time to do this, but I just wanted you to get started. So I encourage you after this session to continue working on your stories. It's really fun, actually. And yeah, here's somebody else has one. After 3 years, John still works for his unkind boss. Bearing with all of unsettling moments, he spends days and nights turning his boss's business into ideas and into reality, business ideas into reality. coming to work early and, whoops. There we go. So coming to work early and leaving the office late. Sorry, I'm having trouble with the chat here. There we go. Leaving the office late is more of a routine for him no matter what. So you can see we're getting different creative ideas here. Here's another one. Apple, here, apple has different colors, better than pineapples. Cats and dogs like eating it. Okay, great. So lots of super ideas. I wish we had time to share, but like I said, we have limited time today. And I thought it'd be good to give you more activities than less. So anyway, any questions or comments about ABC stories? Questions or comments that you would like to make or ask? Okay, and you can keep your questions for the end. I'm going to try to keep a couple minutes at the end for some questions as well. The last one I want to share with you is what I call spontaneous writing. Spontaneous writing is where there are a couple ways to do this. As a teacher, you can give the students a prompt, like you could say clock or window or thunderstorm. Or you could ask the students to look around the room and identify something that they find interesting in the classroom. Or if they're online, something they can see at home. So there are two ways. One is you let the students come up with an idea, or you come up with an idea that you think might be interesting for the students. Now, without preparation, you tell the students, you have 10 minutes. I'm going to give you 10 minutes, and I want you to write a poem or a story in 10 minutes. And I tell them not to worry about grammar. Don't think about grammar. I don't care about grammar. I just want you to write. This is like a fluency activity, like a speaking fluency activity, but we're using it in writing. There's been a lot of work on teachers who do this type of activity where they have their students do this writing in journals where they're not focusing on grammar. Students actually, when they're not thinking about grammar, they actually often write better than when they are thinking about grammar, which is really funny. My sister and I meet online once a week. So I'm currently in Hanoi. I've been in Hanoi for 7 months doing a project through the US Embassy in Hanoi. But my sister who's in the US, she and I, once a week, we do this actually ourselves. We get online and we say, okay, we have 10 minutes or 15 minutes. Here's a theme, go. So I wanted to share a poem that I wrote. This is one I wrote recently. It was raining. It was raining. And so we said, how about if we write about the rain? Sometimes we just randomly, so we're not thinking ahead of time. It's like, what should we write about today? So I wrote this poem in 10 minutes without knowing that I was going to write about the rain. So I want to sort of show you kind of what happens. So rain. Some people find it bothersome when drops of rain they fall, as if their life gets put on hold. Before them stands a wall. Some of them lose energy, saddened they feel down. The smiles that shone on sunny days transformed into a frown. But something that they cannot see, that life the rain does bring. Without it, flowers cannot bloom as winter turns to spring. For drops that fall from high above, they help the trees to grow, filling streams across the land so that the rivers flow. The pitter-patter on the ground to nourish Mother Earth. All creatures do rely on it as new life comes to birth. And we ourselves could not survive without the rain and snow. For if it ceased to fall one day, all life could no more grow. So each time when you hear the sound of raindrops from above, instead of getting down on life, just fill your heart with love. For all things are connected by the growth the rain does bring. So smile next time the thunder roars, your soul will start to sing. Okay, So I wrote this in 10 minutes without knowing I was going to write it. And this is what we do this, like I said, once a week. We do creative writing. My sister's more of a story writer, and I'm more of a poet. So I usually write a poem, and she writes a story in 10 minutes. And we share with each other. We like to share, and we give each other feedback on like what we felt, or sometimes we write down some of the lines we hear. But very, very powerful. And it's interesting. Sometimes we're both tired, or, you know, last time we wrote, she was stressed. We didn't have a lot of time. She spilled her coffee. And we wrote for 10 minutes, and she wrote something amazing in 10 minutes. So these types of writing are really fun. Again, could be a poem, could be a story, could be something that they're experiencing, but just getting them to write freely like this without planning, without thinking. It's quite remarkable what can come out. We don't really have time for you to do this activity, but like I said, sometimes we look and my sister's like, what's something you see? I said, well, there's a mirror behind me. And we wrote a poem. I wrote a poem called Mirror, Mirror on the Wall, because we decided to write about a mirror. And one time there were rays of sun coming in through her window, and I could see the rays of sun. And we wrote a poem called Rays of Hope, because we saw the sun. So we literally do this spontaneously. So anyway, we have a few minutes. Please ask questions. If you have any questions, please type them or comments in the box here. Someone says, teach them vocabulary. That's a great idea. Sometimes you can, especially for students at a lower level, you might want to teach vocabulary first, and then they can use the vocabulary in any of these writing activities if you want to help them. Teaching vocabulary ahead of time can be very helpful, and especially if you're doing something with a theme. So that's a great comment. Someone says, I am wondering about the effects of these on academic writing. Yes. Academic writing and creative writing are different. That's a great question. So the question is, I'm wondering about the effects on academic writing as students have to write essays on academic issues, which is hard to incorporate creative writing. So what I'm recommending is that you do both. If you're teaching academic writing, sometimes do creative writing activities. They're not the same thing. What happens is that when students do creative writing activities, their academic writing improves. Even though it's different, it's actually connected in the sense. Patrick, the person that I mentioned at the beginning, he's taught for many years at a university, so he teaches academic writing all the time. And what they found at the university is his students tend to do better than the other classes in academic writing because he does creative writing as well. So creative writing enhances academic writing. It doesn't mean that academic writing should look like creative writing, but when you do a creative writing activity like ABC stories, it actually helps the students in their academic writing. So it's two separate things. So one day I might say, okay, today we're going to do ABC stories. And then maybe I assign an academic paper for them to do. The academic paper is not going to be an ABC story. It's going to be an academic paper, but their writing overall will improve, which means their academic writing will improve from doing creative writing. So great question. Any other questions?
So we're sorry, Dieter, we are running out of time. So because the time is limited and we do not have time for only questions. So the participant, thank you for the questions, and you can email the speaker directly for further information. Okay, thank you a lot, Dieter, for the very engaging, creative, and inspiring ideas. So we can apply and use some of the ideas in our teaching context. Thank you a lot. And the participant, thank you for the beautiful and lovely stories and poems today. So we thank you for the participation and contribution. Thank you and goodbye.
Okay, I think so. Could we take some screenshots?
Yeah, I want to take some screenshots. I was just
Yeah.
about to ask the same thing. So let me stop sharing.
Yes.
So we can see everybody. Yeah, we'd love to get a screenshot of everybody smiling.
Okay, so